Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Elizabeth Peterson. I'm a humanities librarian and subject specialist for cinema studies at the University of Oregon.
And hi, I'm Mike Aronson. I'm an associate professor in the Cinema Studies Department, also at the University of Oregon. Our talk presentation for Homer this year is Beyond the Reference Desk, a local exhibition model for librarian and film scholar collaboration. In case it's not clear yet, I'm the film scholar and Elizabeth is our librarian. So this presentation in many ways is about the process of collaboration for us, how we came together to work on scholarship and pedagogy together, and the results of it, particularly in terms of the Oregon Theater Project and our class associated with that project.
Right, so today we're going to be talking about the class that we created together, how that came about, and our project, the Oregon Theater Project, as well as, and foregrounding that in the disciplinary strengths of our two different areas and why it's great to collaborate.
By the way, all these postcards are images from Oregon, from many of the towns and cities that our students have worked on in the last couple of years.
So our hope is that with the audience at Homer, that the disciplinary strengths, the research methods of film history would be pretty self-evident to you all. So we thought we'd spend a little more time on how librarians contribute to the work of film history, but also more broadly, how we support the research and teaching mission of our universities. We're operating within a US context, so we recognize that academic librarians may have different roles and expectations elsewhere in the world. And to be perfectly honest, we're not very familiar actually with how academic librarians support scholarship and work with students elsewhere. So I'm curious in the Q&A if we can hear some of that. But in our context, librarians, I think, are typically seen as support staff. So, we provide research help. We teach the library, research methods. We purchase materials to support research and teaching, collect, the cultural memory of an area. But librarians also will be eager to tell you anytime anyone asks that we also do a lot more than that. So we're not sort of support staff, but rather we're academic partners where we teach our discipline, which is information science, how information is created and distributed and accessed and preserved. And also the digital tools now that go along with understanding information flows and creation. We're also help people design their courses, whether it's face-to-face or in an online context. We work with digital scholarship kind of concepts and helping people understand author rights and copyright and on and on. So we really want to be seen as equal partners in student success. So not merely as support people. What usually happens though, is that, instructors will teach their course and they'll have a research paper. And maybe the librarian will come in and give one instruction session that tries to cover it all. How to use the library, how to make sense of what you find. And then we hope that students will ask for help directly from the librarian or maybe at the research help desk. And instead, we have come up with a different model. This is not one that we invented, but it's certainly one that's been really fruitful for the material that we want to engage with. And this is the embedded librarian approach.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing I would like to highlight too is besides being beneficial to our students, it's incredibly beneficial to faculty and beneficial to me. That's, in essence, I mean, there's a selfish component to this too, both in terms of all the things that librarians can offer our students in our classrooms, but also, honestly, in terms of our own research and scholarship and the process of collaboration with Elizabeth, which started really as a kind of basic, intro to research for our students, has really flourished and helped significantly impact my research agenda as well as outcomes for our students.
Right. So in the embedded model, a librarian would help create the syllabus and design the assignments and activities so that research methods, instruction is embedded and scaffolded throughout the course. And so rather than being compressed into one session, it's sequenced so that they really build on each other. And then in the context of this class, the research skills are integrated into the discipline-specific content. So it's not these sort of general ideas about how the library works, but they're really specific to doing film history. And so we're analyzing the primary sources specific to this discipline. But having a librarian integrated like this into the course means that students get individualized help immediately and continually. So the barriers to getting help from a librarian are really lowered. And the librarian is engaged with the students throughout their research process, from the initial concept of what am I researching, to finding sources, to writing, to citing and evaluating. And then also, just from a promotional standpoint, students learn that librarians are available to help them with research throughout that process and to make their work more efficient. And also it helps with the film scholar in the same kinds of ways, as Mike said.
So the actual class, if we haven't said it before, is we've been over the last 4 or 5 years, is it that long? Have developed and now regularly, about once every other year, run a class. The formal is Cine 335, Exhibition and Audiences. It's an undergraduate mid-level course that we co-teach together. And so, in case it's not clear, in the course, our students are focused specifically on the broad topic of exhibition and audiences, but more specifically on the history of movie theaters and moviegoing in Oregon. And we're focused on the silent era in this particular class, but as we'll talk about later, we hope eventually to broaden it out, either ourselves or with other faculty. And in this course, by building this history, and that's what the students are doing, the students learn the research, they learn how to integrate all the various aspects of cinema history that we need in order to build this kind of history. And they gain skills in both primary material research, but also digital tools, particularly online databases that are now accessible, both trade journals and local newspapers. And the really profound thing for undergraduates is that they're building new history. They're not just synthesizing or consuming existing histories written by faculty and other people, but in fact are producing the histories themselves.
Right. And it was really important to us too, that just to get this project off the ground, but also that the skills that students are learning are transferable. They're portable to other classes that they'll take, other disciplines that they might engage with, and that idea of contributing to lifelong learning. So these skills aren't something that they would only use in the context of this class. And then we also wanted to create a structure for ourselves in this class that could scale up to be able to teach the class again and again. And I think we've done it 3 times now. We're scheduled to teach it again next year. And so students can continue to add content to the platform that we've created over time, and other classes could potentially use it as well. Okay, so that has resulted in the Oregon Theater Project, which is a web platform website that we created along with our information services web team. We got some institutional grant money to help fund the project, so that it would be a database-driven platform that would have structured data on the back end that would allow for this kind of scalability, and that integrates a timeline and a map and all of the components that we want students to work on.
And we'll show that to you in more detail in a second, but it's worth noting that this came out of multiple earlier iterations. In fact, the earliest iteration was with Elizabeth working with me. She was working on a master's project focused on the film history of Eugene, Oregon, which is where the university is based. And the initial one was built on a WordPress platform. But as we decided to develop this into a course, we went through a process of both looking at the limitations of that initial platform, but also really looking at what was else out there in terms of these kinds of informational platforms based on histories of moviegoing, both in the US abroad, and seeing what their benefits and limitations were, and really attempting to make something that was both scalable and ultimately, hopefully, open source and transferable as well.
Right. So this is based on an idea of open scholarship. So the tools that we used are open access tools, and the data is created in a way that it can be shareable for comparative work, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail later. So we asked the students, in thinking about what's important about doing local cinema history exhibition, understanding audiences. So along with teaching them history of Oregon and specific towns and these kind of broader historical issues, we wanted them to research specific theaters in specific towns. The first time we taught the class, it was many smaller and rural towns they worked on. The next time we focused specifically on Portland. But the principles remained the same, where we asked them to find the same components for each of the theaters. So we want to know the name, where it's located, dates of operation, owners and managers. So these are the kind of data points that then can be extracted and analyzed in a more quantitative way. But then we also have a narrative component to it, where students are really interpreting and telling the stories of history of these theaters and their place within a town. So we want them to also find out promotional strategies, the programming that took place in the theaters, anything about the buildings, the architecture, safety regulations, et cetera.
The role of women exhibitors in the state at various points, the role that race and ethnicity played, both for exhibitors and for audiences, and on. Really getting our students to both understand kind of as Elizabeth said, both the kind of quantification of historical information, but also the idea of history as a story that needs to be told. So Elizabeth, go ahead. You tell them.
This is a click-through demonstration of the website, the different components. So you can see the cities that we've worked on so far, the way that we can promote specific entries. We have a login that works through the university's authentication system, which works especially well for working with students in a class. This is what the back end looks like, where students would add their content. So it's structured in a way to make it easy for them with the required fields, suggested ways of entering their data so that it has standardization across the platform. And you can see with those examples that not every theater has a street address. Sometimes it's simply cross streets, or all we know is that it's in a town. The dates of operation allow for that, chronological analysis. This is showing the map and the timeline tool, where you can see the growth and distribution of theaters across the state. And this is what it looks like close up within downtown Portland. You can see how theaters are really clustered into one part of the downtown area, but also distributed across neighborhoods.
And note that, as this is an ongoing project and it is student-based research, it's not complete. But the goal is over time for the map to be further and further filled in.
We also used Google Drive as a place to have students collaborate with each other by sharing their research materials. We had them all follow a file naming convention that had the citation information built into the file, so that when they uploaded their clippings to the platform, the citation information would come along with that. And this is an example of a completed profile done by a student. You can see the structured data there at the top and the map, and then these really substantive narrative that incorporates the images. So it has information about the programming and promotional strategies. This is a teeny tiny town in Eastern Oregon called Vail. Architecture and improvements, some safety issues, Sanborn fire insurance maps that show where the theater was located in town, and then the works cited. We really wanted to elevate this beyond a kind of crowdsourced, fan kind of amateur history, and make it something more scholarly. This is an example of how the structured data helps populate the database, the website, in a way that, we don't have to do manual entry. It's automatically entered.
The beauty of it really is that the students are doing a lot of the work, and it's structured in such a way that that work over time will continue to build the map and build the history. But at an individual student level, it's accessible to them, and honestly, it's doable, right? It's something that an undergraduate can do, and ultimately take incredible pride in this ability to kind of publish something that is a new piece of history. There's real satisfaction in that for undergraduates.
Right. And to start the term with 0 theaters in Portland, and to end the term with, well over 100 theater profiles that are now mapped and described, students can really see the accomplishment of that they're contributing to our understanding of how exhibition worked in the state over time. So just to bring it back to our original kind of point about this collaboration between the library science and film history, this project in this class, the project is a pedagogical kind of project itself, as well as a digital collection, digital project of film history. So it's built on these principles that librarians embrace. So accessibility, transferability, portability, open scholarship, open tools, and as well as the research methods that we want students to learn and to model. So the citing of sources and using quality sources and analyzing primary sources in a way that we hope eventual film scholars would do as well.
And from a faculty perspective, having a librarian teach with you, something that, again, I think we often kind of recognize on a very small scale, but this kind of in-depth and extended process, really both beneficial to the faculty, but incredibly beneficial to the students in kind of understanding how many tools are available to them, how to use those tools, and as Elizabeth said, to transfer those tools to other classes and beyond their academic career. So this is the end of our formal presentation. We really wish we were all with you together in Ireland, but we're looking forward to the Q&A. Our emails are there. We're very happy to talk about both the specifics of our project and also the potential for it to be transferred and used by people both in the US and abroad.